Well, I remember like one day, I've always been a fan of MMA since '93. Back when there's no rules, no time limits, no weight classes, all that. And how I personally got into it was I was actually sitting in my house. I was watching Kimbo Slice versus Ray Mercer. And I was watching them fight. And this is back then when I was, drinking a lot, smoking a lot, partying. And I told one of my friends that was in my apartment with me while we were smoking and drinking, watching the fights. I said, man, I bet you I can whoop one of these dudes. I was serious. I've been into like a lot of street fights, and I was just arrogant. I was just cocky, and I just felt as though if they could do it, I could do it. I felt Kimbo was a street fighter. I was like, if he had success in it, I know that I could do it. And my boy King Mo, he contacted me. He wrestled at OSU, and he traveled the world wrestling. Then he fought in Japan. His first fight was in Japan against Travis View. He contacted me, and he was like, hey man, I want you to go check out this gym. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll go check it out, whatever. And I went to Star Jiu-Jitsu in Carrollton. And smoked before I went over there, drank before I went over there. I walked in the door, and Yusuf, he was waiting for me. That's the instructor name. Yusuf is the gym owner. And he told me to come back at like 3 o'clock. He told me to bring some workout clothes. And man, I walked in the door at 3 o'clock. First round I did stand up, I did okay. And that's when I started to realize that the fight game was no joke, because we did 2 minutes of standing up and I was completely gassed. Wrestling, I never wrestled or anything like that, so I didn't know how to really wrestle. So of course I got taken down, but I was so fatigued for trying to use strength in everything that I did. In the third round, I was like 245 pounds at the time. Third round, I went with his brother, Mosin, who was 145 pounds. We did jiu-jitsu. And man, he choked me out like 5 times in 3 minutes. And from that point on, that's when I was like, whatever this is, I need to learn this. And that's how I started going to MMA. And my first gym that I ever trained at, I went to Saxon's Nigeria in Plano. So I figured I need to start out with one martial art first, and that was Muay Thai, and I fell in love with Muay Thai at that point. I love Muay Thai. I love the brutality of it. I love because it was so brutal, like the elbows and the kicks, and you can see people get gashed open, and it's like just 10 toes down, mano a mano. We gonna stand here and see who drops first. And I love that style. I was like, man, like this is a real man sport. Like there's no running, there's none of that. We're gonna stand here in the middle, we're gonna trade blows, and we're gonna see who falls first. And man, when I learned the art of kicking, when I learned how to kick, and I learned how to throw an elbow, I fell in love with Muay Thai. When I first got the call that I was fighting in the UFC, the matchmaker called my coach. So I'm gonna rewind real quick. So I was getting ready to fight for a world title for LFA, Legacy Fighting. And I was getting ready to fight for a world title. His name was Carlos Boy Felipe, and who got popped by USADA, by the way. He on his UFC debut, he didn't get a chance to fight, so they already suspended him for 2 years for being on steroids. But I was gonna fight him for the LFA heavyweight title, and I was getting ready, and I came here on Tuesday night to spar, getting ready to do my rounds, getting ready to fight, and my coach, he pulled me to the side. Coach Say pulled me to the side after sparring, and he was like, man, I got some bad news. Your opponent, he couldn't get approved for his visa, so the fight is off. And at that time, I had lost my job. I had lost my job in February, and I was really needing to fight. I figured I was gonna go to the UFC sooner or later, but my problem was finding opponents and finding people to fight, and this was gonna be a good fight because he was 7-0. He had 7 knockouts, and we were gonna put on a show, and on top of that, I was gonna get my chance to get a second belt in a different organization. And I was just bummed, man, that Tuesday night, and I went home, and I remember I was on my way home, and I was praying, and God was like, God, I'm angry. Like, I was so upset because I just knew that once I beat him, I was gonna get signed to the UFC. And might I mind you, that fight was gonna be in July here in Dallas at the Bomb Factory. And I was driving home, I was like, God, I'm mad, but I know that if you didn't allow this fight to go through, you have something better in store for me. And I kind of let it go from that point on. And I woke up Wednesday, and when I woke up Wednesday, I was about to go do some strength and conditioning. And my coach Safi goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing. I'm about to just, go train a little bit, and, I might be up there later to the gym." And he goes, "It's happening." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You're fighting." So I'm thinking that the guy got approved for his visa. I'm like, man, yes, I get to fight for the world title. And I was like, so he got approved for his visa? And Safe was like, no. He was like, "You're fighting here in Dallas for the UFC on May the 13th. And I was, believe it or not, when he said it, I was like, all right. And then I also said, I was like, I'll believe it when I get the contract, And he was like, I've never had somebody as nonchalant as you that I've gotten to the UFC or somebody. And then he's like, I'm working on it. He's like, you should get your contract here in the next few minutes. I checked my email, like 5 minutes, there is my contract. And I was like, man, that's when it hit home. And from that moment on, I said, you know what? It's on short notice, but I'm about to go out here and fight. Everybody's about to know who I am. Like, I'm gonna go out here and show people I should have been here a long time ago. So I was beyond elated, man. I'm aggressive. When I go for it, I go for it. My favorite fighters I like to watch, like Mike Tyson, David Tua, Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor. I'm a striker. I always look to finish a fight. Like, I'm not looking to take you down. I'm not looking to win on points. I'm looking to get in there and punish you. It played a good part and a bad part. The good part was I'm so athletic. Football made me so athletic. It helped me get out of the way of shots. It helped me absorb shots. But the downfall was I was trying to use fighting like football, like all strength. Like, I was trying to muscle everything. I was trying to muscle every punch, muscle every kick. I was trying to muscle, like, speed through everything, and instead of slowing it down, breaking it down, and using timing and precision. So I would get tired when I first started. So football, it helped me for my athleticism part. FORTIS is owned by my coach Cesar and Deron Williams. Deron, used to play for the Mavericks and the Cavs and the Jazz, but Deron's good, man. Like, he's strong. He has a good wrestling base. He's actually one of my training partners. He helped me a whole lot get ready for this training camp. One of the most laid-back, humble guys that you would ever meet. To be honest with you, I never pictured myself fighting for the UFC. And the reason why I say that is not because I didn't feel like I had the skills. I remember about a year ago, I was talking to my teammate who just signed with the UFC, Charles Bird, and I was talking to him, and I was like, man, bro, I ain't going. I'm tired. I'm about to quit fighting. I was just gonna go straight to boxing because I'm undefeated in boxing. So I was getting boxing matches, left and right, and there's a lot of promoters that wanted to sign me to boxing. And I was like, man, I'm not getting any fights. Nobody wants to fight, or fights keep falling through. And I was getting discouraged because I felt as though I had the talent, but nobody was putting me on the big shows. I fought once for Bellator, and then I was trying to fight all the guys for Bellator, all the heavyweights for Bellator. And I was like, they didn't want to fight. They wouldn't put me on the fight card. Then you'll see people get put on these fights. And you're like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, I'm better than this person. I'm not trying to be arrogant, not trying to be cocky, but you know that your skill set is better than some of these guys that they sign to fight, or they bring guys in to fight to let their dudes shine. And it was just recently that I finally got my break last year, and I signed with LFA. And when I signed with LFA, I had a fight. My first fight for them was on TV last October. And that's when I started noticing, like, okay, man, like, I'm on the verge. Like, because all my fights, I've never gone the distance. I've knocked everybody out that I've fought. I've only went the third round one time. That's because I broke my foot in the first round. And at that moment, when I fought for LFA and I walked out on national television and the love that I received and the number of tickets that I sold, and I saw how I had my city behind me and I saw how the world responded to me fighting, I was like, man, okay, I belong here. And at that moment, I was like, okay. So I knocked my guy in 1 minute and 11 seconds. And I fought for Legacy again in January, and I knocked that guy in 38 seconds. And then I was like, okay, like I'm ready. And then like I started putting more and more of my time into my training and because I got discouraged for a little bit because I wasn't on the big shows. I hadn't got any big pay. I'm like, listen, man, I'm making a little bit of money, and I'm beating my body up, taking time away from my kids and my family, and I'm not reaping what I'm putting into this. So I got discouraged for a little bit, and I was like, man, forget this fight, fighting. And I had like a little chip on my shoulder because I felt as though there were people that were getting pushed before me from the city or getting a shot, and they wasn't doing what myself or people from my gym was doing. But after that last fight, I knew. I just had a feeling. I told my coach, I says, when I found out that UFC was coming to Dallas, I won in 38 seconds. And I looked my coach in the eye and backstage, and I told him, I said, I'm gonna fight on that Dallas card. I was like, I'm telling you right now, speaking it into existence. And he was like, okay. I was like, I'm serious. And so at least once a month, I'm telling him, I was like, hey man, coach, I'm telling you, I'm gonna fight on that card. And then how fate had it, I lost my job in February. And I called coach after I lost my job. We got laid off, like 40 people got laid off, and I was one of them in the mortgage industry. And I called coach and I said, listen, I just got laid off from my job, so I need to fight. And I said, I think this is a sign for me. I said, man, I'm about to start training full time. So I'm about to start coming to the gym, I'm about to start training full time. And he was like, okay. So I kept my mouth shut and I just show up to the gym. Because before, me being a single parent, I would have to come train as less as all the guys that fought and still be as successful as the guys that fought. Some of the guys were not fighting, not working full time. I was working full time, taking care of both my two kids. I'm a single father. And then having to come to training, at 7, 8 o'clock at night versus being able to train and do like a real fight camp, like strength and conditioning. Then I go to my boxing coach. Then I go to a kickboxing coach. Then I come here and do MMA. So after that happened, I told my coach, I was like, man, it's gonna happen. And sure enough, I spoke it into existence. God put me in the UFC for a reason. I have custody of my kids since 2007. I got 2 boys, 13, and my youngest one, he's actually gonna be 12, 3 days after I fight in Australia. But people think that just because you are a male, that life is easier for you, or that things are easier for you to accomplish. But honestly, man, being a single parent, being a single father is hard because they look at you like, okay, you're a man, you got everything figured out, everything. But it doesn't work like that. Like, I haven't got any child support. Like, I'm supposed to get child support. I don't get any child support. I do everything on my own. I have to wake up in the morning for my kids, cook breakfast, iron clothes, do hair, drop them off at school. At that time, I was having to go work 8 to 5, then come home, do homework, make sure everything was cooked, make sure everything was in order for them. So when we got back from training, that everything was running through so they can go to bed. And, then I'll come train at 8 o'clock, don't get home till like 10 o'clock, 10:30. And then on top of that, get home, get them in the bed, get them situated, and wake up the next day at 6 o'clock in the morning. Just a repeated cycle every single day, and it's hard, man. It's hard trying to do it on your own. And the way I can say it didn't put a chip on my shoulder, but it motivated me. It motivated me for the simple fact that I looked at myself and I saw how I was accomplishing what all these guys in MMA was already accomplishing, and I was doing it in 1/4 the amount of time that they were doing it in. Like they were doing it, like they had full fight camps. Like they can go train twice, 3 times a day. I'm training once at night for 2 hours, 3 hours. And I'm still having to take care of my single father responsibilities. And I'm doing, if not just as good or better as these guys. I'm going out there knocking guys out. They're going out there going to decisions. So it actually was motivation. I was like, okay, if y'all can do it, then all right. You know what? I'm not going to use this as an excuse. And it helps my kids. You know, it's like my kids are very successful. They're straight A's. So they haven't made anything less than A since they've been in school. Ever since kindergarten, they've made nothing but straight A's. And it transitions over into their life. So they're great athletes. They're A honor roll students. I mean, they're just great kids. They're great human beings. So it teaches them and it taught them. They follow my footsteps because it shows them hard work. Because like, man, if my daddy can do this, then why can't I do this? And my kids are very, very accomplished in what they choose to do in school as far as football, basketball, and wrestling. And their school is number one. So it's very motivating, man. It's good to see that my kids, that they love, that I can inspire them, that they love seeing what I do and watching how they watch me and then they transition it over into their life. So that was my motivation. So it wasn't like really a chip on my shoulder. It was just more like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put this work in. I'm gonna show my kids what it is to work hard and what it is to be a real man. And they follow in the footsteps. And now it's got me to the UFC. And now I'm only gonna go up from here, man. It's only fuel to the fire. Yeah, Errol Spence. You know him. I trained with him. Adrian Taylor, Robert Brandt, you know, he just fought over in Germany. You know, my box coach, Nathan Pipitone, Derek James, all of them. So we're in the same circle. So I don't spar with Errol Spence. You know, I mean, he's, you know, we're in 2 completely different weight classes and he'll murder me. You know what I'm saying, in boxing. You know, Alex Clarkson, you know, he's another one. We all train together as far as, so I go over there and I do my boxing with those guys, but I learn a lot, man, just from sitting back watching Errol Spence. You know, life, it hasn't really changed dramatically, but the cool part to me is, the best thing that's happened to me is, you know, people recognize you. You know, people recognize you like when you go to the airport. You know, I think for me, the coolest thing for me that was a defining moment for me that I belonged was the week after I fought. We went to Vegas for the Fighters Retreat. And the minute I got off the plane and landed, well, the minute I got to the hotel, the resort, like it's like 300 some fighters there. The minute I stepped foot into the hotel, like I had all the big name people would come to you and be like, say, man, I saw your fight. That was amazing. Shake hand, congratulate. I mean, people like, you know, Leo Machida, Tyron Woodley, you know, at that time, you know, Mickey Gall, Sage Norcutt, Paul Felder, like just, I mean, Michael Johnson. I mean, it's just, the list just goes on and on. I'm missing like a ton of people. But the coolest thing to me is the respect that I've gotten from all the people in the UFC. And even, you know, when Dana White saw me at the Fighters Retreat, as soon as he saw me, he just greeted me with open arms. He was like, man, that was an amazing fight. How's your leg? Like, he was genuinely concerned with my well-being. And he was concerned, like, hey, man, that was an awesome fight. I just want to thank you for putting on a great show. And also, you know, going to the airport, I was flying at the airport, just going different places. And, you know, people just sitting there talking to me like my friends and stuff. We was traveling to Vegas to see my boy Charles fight because he fought for the Contender the first time. And people like, it was like 3 people that came up to me. And it was like, oh, my God, Rashad, you know, we saw your fight, amazing fight. Can we take a picture? And like people wanted to take pictures, and I was just like, man, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? It's cool because it shows that I left my heart in the cage, and you know, and also to see all the stars come to you and be like, man, you had an amazing fight. It shows that I belong in this sport, you know, and that's one thing that I've used for motivation for my training and going into this next fight is I belong here. And like, that's the cool part. Like, I actually belong here. I put on a hell of a fight for a 9-day notice. So now I'm anxious to see what I'm about to do with a full fight camp. Only hard part was my cardio wasn't up to par, but it almost takes the pressure off of you, because training camp is so hard, it's so grueling. Like, you got anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks of just beating your body up, going as hard as you can, and you know, all the nicks and bruises that you incur like during your training camp. And man, it's hard. Like, fighting is tough on your body mentally, and sometimes you want to quit. And I think that for me, in my heart, I knew that I was gonna fight in the UFC. So when I got the call on a 9-day notice, I knew it was gonna happen that way, because UFC, they don't sign you and then let you get a full fight camp. They're gonna call you in on short notice. So it almost kind of took the pressure off. And then when I walked out, and then like just to hear, when they called my name, just to hear the crowd and just look up and see your name and the lights going around the arena, and just see the crowd stand up on their feet. And when they say your name, just to hear everybody yell and see people hanging over the rail want to shake your hand. And in the moment that you step in there, you take your clothes off, you hug it up, you put the vest in your face, you step in the cage, and it's like, man, you look around, it's like, okay, this is it. Like, this is what it feels like to be in a big show. I felt like I belonged there. I didn't feel any pressure, like none. Well, sir, I got more nervous like when I was fighting for a local belt than I did when I fought in the UFC. I literally felt like I belonged there. The moment I started walking out, I was like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I do. This is why I train. This is why I take my kids and we're out until 11 o'clock at night most nights. You know, they hardly get any sleep, getting up and going to school. This is what it's about. I felt like I belong there, man. And I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna continue to strive. I'm gonna be victorious. There's two people that I talked to, really three. I talked to my boy King Mo, I talked to my boy Charles Bird, and I talked to my coach Saif Saud. And I was like, listen, I was literally, this is what I told Mo. I said, man, if I don't fight for a big promotion by the end of this year, I said, I'm done with MMA. I said, I'm going straight over to boxing. But then I got another fight in January, and when I got that fight, I was like, okay. And then that's when I got the call saying, hey man, I'm about to fight for the UFC. So I literally was, had I not fought by the end of the year, I was done with MMA.